Welcome to the Teachers on Fire podcast, where 21st century educators come to share, learn, and be inspired. We believe in the growth mindset, creativity, communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and strategic uses of education technology. Our mission is to share news and views from teachers who are crushing it in the classroom and making a difference for learners everywhere. I'm your host, Tim Cavey. Let's jump into today's episode. Today I'm speaking with Steve Lai. Steve is a loving husband, proud father of 2 girls, an accomplished musician, and an avid sports fan. If that wasn't enough, Steve speaks 3 languages, continues to facilitate workshops for effective iPad use in the classroom, and maintains a highly successful blog for educators at teachingwithipad.org. Steve, it is a privilege to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk education?
I am ready, Tim. Thanks for having me on, and good job on the podcast.
Thank you very much. So far, so fun. Steve, why don't you start by describing your current teaching situation?
Well, currently I'm at Richmond Christian School in Richmond, BC. It's on the west side of Richmond. I'm teaching in the elementary campus. So right now it is grades 1 through 5. So I have almost 400 students. Wow. And it's mostly an Asian community. Mm-hmm. And I teach French there. So I have 15 classes of about 25 each. I think that's close to 400 total.
That is some serious data management going on there. Wow. Steve, we've all had these low moments in our education track or career. Tell us about one that you've had and how you overcame it.
All right. Well, I've been teaching this program called AIM, and it's a very successful French curriculum that uses a lot of, gestures that are taught, and it really facilitates the student learning. And I had taught it for about 10, 11 years, and then I decided to try this professional, the AIM certification, the teacher certification. This is the top level within this curriculum. So I gave it a shot. You sign up and you get put with a mentor, and I was placed with a mentor that had even more experience than me. And basically what you have to do is you have to answer a lot of questions about your own teaching, and you have to send in videos of detailed teaching scenarios. So what happens is that once you send in the video, the mentor will basically critique it. And so I guess not really a low point, but something that I guess I got used to was that she would be very picky and in almost everything that I did in those videos. But I think in the end, obviously, I became better for it, because all these years I would hear good things about my teaching, but this mentor person was, again, very picky and meticulous in her critique. But I think, like I said, just in the end, I appreciated it and became better because of it.
I think that dynamic of having a really tough coach is always a fine line, isn't it? And I can't help but think about our practice in the classroom. We definitely don't want to push our students too hard, but we also want to keep the bar high. And just knowing you and your practice a little bit, Steve, I feel like you are a stickler for perfection, I know, in your own work. And so it sounds like you survived and you thrived as a result.
So now, after finishing that, I am one of those mentors now. I just have to be placed with someone in the future.
You're going to be one of those tough coaches, Steve, aren't you? Steve, what is it that excites you about education today? And I mean, your wheelhouse is the world of Apple education, and obviously you're running a highly rated iPad teaching blog. So I would imagine your answer might be somewhere in there. What's really igniting your passion for education?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I like to incorporate as much technology as I can into my teaching. And as you may or may not, some of your listeners may or may not know, the Apple did come up with a cheaper iPad in the last a little bit, and basically in the States it's $330, and if you're in education, it's it's $300. And I think that iPad is basically all almost everyone needs in terms of its ability. So you don't really need to spend $1,000 on one anymore. Um, it supports the Apple Pencil, which again is not the cheapest tool, but it's about $100. And I think even having just one in the classroom would be helpful. Um, Something excites me as well is I guess meeting teachers that are excited to learn, and I think um, it's just a matter of taking time to do that. Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, that leads into my next question, Steve, which is, thinking about, let's say there's a teacher out there, they're familiar with this latest offering from Apple, which sounds to me like they've finally, maybe this is the Apple answer to the Chromebook, or sort of in that price range. So, talk to that teacher out there that wants to implement Apple devices in their classroom and use them to just optimize their teaching and improve learning for their students. What is one thing that you would pass on to those teachers to use, one bit of advice that you would give them to use technology more effectively?
yeah. Like you don't have to be an expert in everything. Obviously, it's great to have a lot of knowledge in doing things, but just take chances. Get the iPad. If you haven't used in the classroom, just go and spend the $300 and
Mm-hmm.
just spend a little while learning on a few things, and then use your class as a way to try new things, and your students don't expect to be perfect. If you make mistakes or if something doesn't work out right away, they can see that as a learning. You can use that as a teaching tool as well. And if you don't take risks, I guess you won't be rewarded with having a good lesson or good lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just yeah, there's so much out there in terms of Pro D and in terms of what you can um, learn in using different types of technology. It's just spend the time, not too much time, just even just an hour here or there, just to figure something out new and give it a shot. And again,
Mm-hmm.
your students aren't going to crucify you if you make a mistake, right?
Oh man, they are pretty forgiving, and I agree. I mean, one thing I take out of what you shared there is that we need to model the growth mindset for our students, right? And when we show that we're willing to go places that we're not comfortable, man, that's powerful for kids to actually see that in action. So,
That's
yeah,
right. And
I just get a yeah.
the more you do it, obviously, the better you're going to be at it, and the more
Mm-hmm.
comfortable you're going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have, or no, I won't ask. I won't ask if you have any of these teachers at your school. But have you ever met, Steve, a teacher who tells you, "Oh, I'm just not a tech person"? Have you heard that before?
Yeah, and I don't think that's a valid excuse anymore with today's
Hmm.
availability of different things.
Yeah.
It's not a valid excuse.
No. No. Strike that one off the record. Moving on a little bit, Steve, tell us about a personal habit that contributes to your success. And this might be something, education related, or it might be a personal thing.
So this one's not exactly tech related, but the way I teach, I don't have the one classroom all day. I have basically 9 different classes every day. So that
Mm-hmm.
allows me to have um, shorter classes. So each class is actually only 30 minutes. So
Okay.
within 30 minutes, I like to keep students motivated and paying attention by not having the same activity for too long. I like to have
Mm-hmm.
at most 10 minutes. So you're
Mm-hmm.
changing things between doing things as a class, practicing vocabulary together, reciting things together, to answering questions about just general questions about the day, just getting them to speak the language, in this case
Mm-hmm.
French, and just having fun activities changed once in a while so that it doesn't become boring. So
Mm-hmm.
a student who is interested in one thing might not be as interested in others, but you're just trying to vary the things, have a fast pace so that you're capturing their attention for as much of the 30 minutes as possible.
That sounds phenomenal, Steve. And I'm a little bit envious, and I'm just trying to figure out how in the world you come up with enough energy to keep moving and changing up and mixing it up every 10 minutes of your day, because you are in a lot of different classes, my friends. So hats off to you. What about thinking back a little bit to EdTech, and maybe not necessarily the Apple universe, but what's an EdTech tool that maybe it's that you use it in one of those 10-minute cycles that you described, but what's an EdTech tool that is really hitting it off with students and making your teaching effective?
Well, once again, I like to use the projector, and I like
Mm-hmm.
to teach using as much technology as I can. So I'm sure a lot of teachers out there already know what Quizlet is. Quizlet is the app that's more like a flashcard app, and it's
Mm-hmm.
obviously great for French
Mm-hmm.
and language learning. It's also it can be good for social studies, for English, things like that. Anyways, within Quizlet, there's different games that you can play once students have mastered the actual words. There's different games that you can play. So a game that I discovered a couple of years ago was actually Quizlet Live. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw that you were playing that in your class as well. Was that true, Tim? A couple
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago, last
Yeah,
week?
it's true. Yeah.
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 So that uses any sort of device. It doesn't have to be Apple. As long as you have internet, you can play the different teams of like four, teams of five, and then you just work together in a goal, completing a goal and matching terms. So
Mm-hmm.
that one's pretty fun. I like to also play Kahoot. Kahoot
Mm-hmm.
is a tool that I think millions of teachers have really picked up on. So like if
Yeah.
you don't want to create your own Kahoot, you just type it in the search engine. You can type in any topic, and there's gonna be good Kahoots that you can do with your students. And actually, in the past little while, they've made it so that students can play Kahoot at home. So you can give them a code, you can challenge them, and they can play against each other. And you can do that at home at the student's own time. It's always a fun one to play in the classroom as well. And then the third one that isn't as well known is called Quizzes. So it's
Mm-hmm.
Quizzizz.
Mm-hmm.
Quizzes.com is also very good. You can also create lots of fun multiple choice quizzes and assign them as homework, and then you can use that as assessment. And kids are playing that in my classroom once in a while, and again, I can use those marks as for to go towards report cards. Again, they can play quizzes. They can play it at home as well, and on their own devices. Again, it's any device. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be an iPad. It can be a Samsung tablet if they have that.
I know that makes you shudder just to say it, but yeah. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, they
so
once they
mhm.
log in. Actually, you know what? For quizzes, they don't even need to log in. They can just put in
Okay.
their name, and
Yeah,
I get the full records, and they can export that into Excel file as well if I wanted.
beautiful. And I know Kahoot offers that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are three. Just to summarize those three platforms that Steve described, we've got Quizzes, Kahoot, and Quizlet. And is there which one of the three, just quickly, Steve, are you using the most right now?
Like I like to vary so that I guess students get a variety, and
Mm-hmm.
some love Kahoot the most, some love Quizlet Live seems to be more exciting for the younger students,
Okay.
but my personal favorite actually is quizzes, and
Hmm.
yeah, you can create questions within a Excel file as well and export it through what's called a CSV file, or you can create questions really easily right on the quizzes website. And they also have fun memes that you can add. You can make your own memes. So like
Okay.
for correct answers and incorrect answers, you can add
Oh,
little
I see.
funny memes that are pretty funny.
Little pop-ups.
Yeah.
Very cool. I will take a look at quizzes, Steve. Kahoot and Quizlet Live are pretty familiar to me, and you're right. Both of those two really, really work well in middle school classes. That's kind of my world, but yeah, I need to take a look at quizzes. Steve, moving into some rapid fire picks and recommendations, okay? Tell us about one book that maybe you've been reading lately or one of your all time faves, and tell us why you recommend it.
So it's not like a typical book, but Sylvia Duckworth is a teacher friend of mine who's recently retired, I think, and she wrote a book called Sketchnotes for Educators.
Okay.
It's actually available on Amazon, I saw, and it contains 100 of her most popular ones that she made, and I think you're familiar with them. Have you seen some of those, Tim?
I have. She seems to pop up on Twitter fairly often. Great stuff.
So yeah, actually, I would highly suggest you trying to get her on this podcast in the future because actually she's going to be doing a cross Canada sketchnoting workshop tour. So she's going to be teaching teachers how to use sketchnoting in the classroom. So I'm pretty excited about that for my Pro-D. And even though I think you don't have to be a great drawer, but she'll be able to teach me and other teachers how to do these fun sketch notes in the classroom.
Very, very cool. Sylvia Duckworth. And sorry, her book is called Sketch Notes for Educators. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Steve, you're an Apple guy. You must be a podcast listener. Is that right?
I listen to the odd podcast once in a while. Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty nerdy, but for all the shows that I do watch on Netflix and on regular TV, if I if I'm intrigued enough, I do listen to like an after show. So what's good on there is something called AfterBuzz TV, and you can type in um, the name of your show and then type in after show. And so
Okay.
AfterBuzz TV is a company that actually has a lot of the shows that people listen to. So, for example, any of you like to watch Scandal or This Is Us, if you just type in This Is Us after show, I'm pretty sure AfterBuzz TV is going to be one of the first ones, and it's just something to hear like other people's opinions on certain episodes, and
Hmm.
I guess I like to fall asleep to those.
All right. I see it there in iTunes, so we'll get that into the show notes after Buzz TV. I like that. Steve, if you weren't teaching or working in education, what do you think would be your next choice for a career path?
Well, the funny thing is, but it's been so long. This is my 17th or 18th year of teaching, and I
Hmm.
didn't know I was going to become a teacher until probably third or fourth year university. But
Okay.
honestly, I don't really see myself doing much else, and I just enjoy my job. I
Hmm.
love again having so many students. I love being able to have relationships with each one of them, and
Hmm.
if I had to choose, I would probably be in some sort of um, entrepreneurial job, I guess, maybe on my own or with a partner, and just
Hmm.
working my way and kind of just hustling and bustling.
I like that. And I can definitely see it, Steve. You're an exciting guy. You've got a lot of different ventures going on, so I can see that entrepreneurial bug in you for sure. Steve, kind of a fun last question. I love to check in to hear how are teachers relaxing. Now, you mentioned a little bit of viewing. You dropped a couple of shows there on Netflix. What are you watching on Netflix right now?
I like to watch, funny enough, I like to watch food shows on Netflix. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with Anthony Bourdain. He's got a show called The Layover, which has a couple seasons up there, and he goes to quite a few different cities and a lot of cities that I've been to, and it's fun to see some of the scenery from those cities. And he goes to all these cool restaurants, and it's fun to see him I guess, go to all these awesome restaurants that I guess I could have gone to. And so
Next
it's
time,
something
next
that if
time.
I ever go back to those cities, such as I guess New York or even Amsterdam, or there's one in Singapore that was really good. It's just he knows how to like find the best restaurants. There's a
Okay.
similar one that's called Ugly Delicious, where there's a chef that goes around different places around the world just to learn about how to make or how different types of pizza and how to find the best pizza in the world.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Has Anthony Bourdain been to Paris? I know Paris is kind of your home away. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's putting it too strongly, but you've been to Paris a few times.
Yeah, he's been to Paris as well. I've been to
Okay.
Paris quite a few times, and
Yeah.
yeah, he gives some good advice. For example, when some people that go to Paris try to definitely try to see too much within too short a time, he just says
Right.
don't do that. Just enjoy and just go to restaurants and just don't do too much.
Right. Right. That's good
And that's something
advice.
I would do if I went back to Paris. I wouldn't have to worry about seeing too many of the sights. I just thought enjoy and just enjoy being there and
Yeah.
just definitely enjoy the restaurant side of it more.
Steve, you've got a big following already. What's the best way for our listeners to follow you, and where can you be found?
I think the best way is probably Twitter. You can find me at SLY111. Um, Facebook page is Teaching with iPad. I just update whenever I blog something good. I put it on there. But if you want to go straight to my blog, it's teachingwithipad.org. One word, teachingwithipad.org. Um, and if any of you listeners out there have as much passion as I do in terms of uh, iPads in education, please contact me. And I'm really excited to collaborate. I've done some collaborations with others before. Um, or if you have a post that you want to share something about your use of iPads in the classroom, I'd be very happy to publish that. So Tim, you're included in that invite.
Okay. Well, thanks, Steve. This has been so much fun for me to interview a good friend and colleague for many years, and someone who has quite a following, and deservedly so. And so I do hope the listeners will take a look at Steve's work over at teachingwithipad.org. And Steve, take care, man. Not too much time left in the school year. Hope it goes well for you. And we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks again for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Teachers on Fire, where teachers come to share, learn, and be inspired. Please subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes, and follow us on Twitter at Teachers on Fire. I'm your host, Tim Cavey, saying goodbye for now, and we'll catch you next time, right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast.